Day 6 of the February 97 7-day retreat in Springwater. Recently somebody asked, where did you get that beautiful name, Springwater? I said, that's where we live. And we didn't buy the land here because of the name of the town. But because our heart went out to this land. I recently read in a book, when you dig for water, you don't dig in many places, you just dig one hole and you keep digging. It wasn't exactly for water, it was for a proper leach field that we dug some 80 times. Find a place where the stuff could go. Almost gave up on it. Because the land didn't perk. This is the professional language. To take the gray and black water is also professional language. Then we found a little spot, just the right size, for 40 or 50 people retreating 8 or 10 times a year. That's where you're not supposed to walk on right now. Because after some 12 years or so, it's in need of something or other which I don't understand. It's just an aside to our topic today. What is this me? Perking all over the place. One may have come to retreats for 10 years, 15, 20, and suddenly this question grabs one. Particularly since it's so common sense, common conviction, common belief that there is a separate entity called me. Of course, we have a personal name. This is how it may all start, although not necessarily. Why is there this incredibly tenacious sense of I, of me, of self? So convincing that if one asked the person in the street, they wouldn't know what we're asking about. Of course, it has a lot to do with our language, talking the way we do, constantly using the I form. I'm thinking, I'm giving a talk, I'm sitting here, I don't understand. I've got to understand this. The I is there, grinding away into the brain matter, the circuit of self-centeredness, of self-consciousness. And language and words have tremendous power on the unfolding of this organism, this body-mind, or mind-body language with its thoughts, the memories, what I was, the sort of this photo album of memory about myself, feeling, assuming that there's a continuity of meanness contained in all of these pictures since the first picture was taken. My father was very interested in photography, so shortly after my mother had given birth to me, he set up the camera and quickly snuck there near the bed, and there's the picture of the three of us. Picture was deeply engraved in my mind. And lots of consecutive pictures. He took movies of every situation. That started in my life in 1927. Lots of movies. Living the movie life, quite self-conscious at a young age that a picture was being taken and how to look good when I see it later. Kids love seeing pictures of themselves, photographs. I can tell, watching our grandchildren, how self-conscious when pictures are taken. Our grandson at a certain point didn't want to have any pictures taken of him anymore. He snuck out, was sort of scolded for it, or tried to coax him back into the picture. Don't you want to see yourself later when the picture comes out? So, memories, thoughts about ourselves, what we were told that we are from the earliest of times. Family, maybe more than one child, comparisons, rivalry, parents exasperated having to bring up these kids, telling them what they are and what they shouldn't be, what's bad and good. All these seeds dropping into a vulnerable, open, ready to learn, ready to grow and imitate consciousness. Thinking back of one's own youth, one may think, well, it's inevitable with being born that this me consciousness develops. And yet last year, a friend gave me a book. It's called Sunyata. It's a small biography by a Danish mystic who lived. He died at the age of 90 some odd years, and that was in the 80s, I believe. So you can figure out how long ago. He was born on a Danish out in the sticks farm. Sunyata is a name later given to him by Ramana Maharshi. He grew up, he says, without an ego. His father he describes as an egoless person, letting that little boy roam the land without lording it over him. His mother was busy with a household, 2 older sisters, 10 years and more old. Didn't try to shape him. And he grew up without this sense of self. This is how he reports. And if you get the feel of his words, you believe him. When you read books, authors, you between the lines, between the letters, between the words, you get the feel, is this person coming from direct seeing, direct being, or from knowledge? One gets that sense. One still may be mistaken, but it's very present. Actually, the interesting thing is, Sunyata called this being without ego memory. Not that it left him forever. When he was 7 years, the farm was sold, and he had to go to school and to religious education. And as he describes it, coming in contact with lots of ego-Gs. That's a neat way of putting it. You may know G, the last syllable is, in India, the appellation of a holy thing or a respected thing. All these ego-Gs. Nice way of looking at it for us if we wonder why we feel so hostile so quickly if some big ego G comes on. So he calls it memory. The whole chapter about his life is called memory. Not that he's constantly living in memories, living out of that. Being here. And yet, there, every once in a while, inattention gets lost, and then memory, remembering. It's a different use of the word memory, not living in memories like in a movie, but remembering. The remembering being the awareness here, now, being here, in one's true being. Remembering one's true being, wordlessly, not as an image, not as knowledge. Remembering together, whole. Not members cut apart. That's how we live in this idea of that we're separate from each other and all these different separate selves around us. So one must not assume anything. That's the beauty of coming upon some new life story, which says, no, it isn't so, it's possible. But of course, who these days still can live on an out of the way in the sticks farm with a non-dominating father who doesn't need to be something via his son, etc. Or dominating mother. Let's not underestimate the dominance of mother. Very often, fathers are nowhere to be seen, and it's the mother who holds the rein, metes out the punishments or rewards. One person years ago, a very soft-spoken, gentle person, told me that he remembered in a retreat that one time when he was angry, his mother grabbed him and just pretty much threw him in his room, closed the door, saying, "This is not our Jack." So growing up with this image that to be loved and nourished by mother, one has to be gentle and kind and not angry, can stick deep. Very, very deep. Affecting behavior in a distorting way. The fact that there are distinct bodies and distinct personal consciousnesses is beyond dispute. Even though if one thinks about it, where do these bodies come from? Where do human beings come from? All the knowledge that has accumulated through research about evolution, human evolution, life evolution, universe evolution, where do we all come from? Ultimately. In the past, the human population gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. A few tribes, or one may believe in Adam and Eve. But it was few, causing the many multitudes to be multiplying rapidly from now on. So that sets into doubt the genuine, complete separateness of this temporary manifestation from egg and sperm, which comes from where? Not just from father and mother. Infinite past. So, that's what sometimes people who come for the first time in touch with this idea that maybe I'm not separate and saying, well, if I prick a pin into my thigh, you don't hurt. If I prick a pin into my thigh, you don't hurt. Vice versa. Or some people are very sensitive, and one develops this kind of sensitivity with children or husbands or wives or partners, that one feels their pain. I don't mean to be trivial. One feels what happens to others. Genuinely. So it's not impossible. Through great openness and sensitivity to be in touch with pain of human beings, physical and mental, and spiritual. But when we're talking about the conviction about a separate I, not so much referring to the distinct body, which has its distinct history, but the storyline, the image collection, the ideas and thoughts that develop alongside of it. Together with it, maybe a better word. I remember driving into Rochester in the late 60s, to the center there, steering and wondering what this I is. Certainly it was this body sitting in the car and steering the steering wheel. But then it was also the thoughts that were going on. And my thought went to my brother, whom I was very fond of, and realizing that was also part of me, at least the thought of him and his family, the nephews, his wife. And thinking whatever I could think of, that was also part of me because it was happening in thought right now. But it felt separate. There was no way the intellect could get through that idea, this sense of separateness. I also reversed the thinking. What if I lost a leg? Would I still be I? Of course I would be. What if I lost all limbs? Yes, I would still be I, me. What if I died? No more me. Although I wasn't quite sure about it, and I was, of course, entering into the Buddha's stream of ideas about reincarnation. Rebirth, not reincarnation. It was emphasized. It wasn't reincarnation, it was rebirth. A difference was seen to Indian mythology and Buddhist teachings, which, being identified now with the Buddhist teachings, I would stress to people if they talked about reincarnation, saying, no, it's rebirth. Not quite understanding the difference. So, when the question begins to consume one, or at least nag one, the first thing that happens is thought is trying to solve it, to think it through, to figure it out, and to go to any length to figure it out, which includes long study of books which purport to tell one all about it. Guide one in what? In thinking or in looking? remember going through volumes and volumes of books and then sort of ODing on the whole process. Wasn't getting me any place. I was becoming congested and frustrating. Dead-ended. And yet, it was good to have gone through it. With that comes wisdom of which way the path does not go. Because the sense of I was left intact in spite of all the new ideas, new beliefs that were offered, or whatever was offered. I still remember in Isishin, that's a retreat in the Zen tradition, I was always sitting at the very end of a divider where I could see the door and the manjator. Manjator was the coordinator. A word combined out of monitor and manjusri, who is the bodhisattva of wisdom with a sword. And this man, of course, was handling the kiyosaku, the stick with which one was hit during the sesshin. Somebody told me in this retreat, a person's never been in Zen. Maybe it would be good to have a little bit of not fall into sloth and torpor. So out of the corner of my eye, I could see this man sitting there on his podium, or at the time we didn't have them, on the floor. All of us on the floor. And wondering whether I could see him as myself. It's already possible with listening. In listening to sounds, the traffic constantly on East Avenue back and forth, and the sirens taking ambulances to Genesee Hospital. Always a racket or somebody playing radio next door or across the street. It was possible to hear that and not feel separate from it. It went much easier with listening than with seeing that manjator there. Because the sense of self was very strong, and therefore the sense of him. And then, when it did happen, that the sense of self, that whole, what I now call the whole network of self-centered thought, with its accoutrements of emotions, memories, when that network is quiet, unplugged from the energy, because the energy is here, attending, awareing. There was just this man and the dividers and the people and it was all there. Who was separate from it? There was no one there to feel separate from it. This is what was meant. No separation, everything as it is. No brain work in action, establishing references between the me thought network and what is seen and known and labeled as being him or her or them or us. No self-reference that can quiet down, be unplugged. First or second retreat in California, we held on a Vedanta land, a beautiful place. A teacher came from a different tradition to partake in this retreat. I knew that this person was a teacher because there was some altercation with the housekeeper who had assigned a double room to this person, and she said, "I'm a teacher." So there's an image in the mind about this person being a teacher. We establish these images. We think in intentionally, but where does the intention to say, I'm a teacher, come from? It comes from conditioning. We've lived through it all our life. People telling us what they are, stressing their importance, and their importance often is power over us. So, one observes. So, one day, it was only a five-day retreat, this person came to a meeting and said, you know, it's amazing. I never realized that no matter what I look at, I bring myself in relationship with it. Thinking about me in relationship to the tree or whatever is seen. And it was said in such utter humbleness. That's the beauty of it. Seeing is seeing through this stuff, not just seeing it, but seeing through it. That's when the circuit is unplugged in just this moment or whatever long it takes of here-ness, now-ness, which is discovery. Out of our true condition, discovery comes out of our true condition into the conditioning, which is bringing myself into relationship with everything. One can watch that. See, this is the way to go about finding out what this me-ness or this self or I really is. To watch ourselves in relationship with others. Not just with the trees. That's not quite so evident, because trees don't talk back. They don't assert themselves, or else if we run into them and bump, we don't get mad. Although one shouldn't say, sometimes one does. That reminds me of a story. Maybe I should tell that story. That used to happen to me. If I bumped into something, I'd get angry. An instant reaction. And then was a time of becoming aware of that and wondering about it and wondering whether that was inevitable, that bumping into something in a very sensitive skin, get a bruise right away, whether this is an inevitable reaction. Although there's a very fine difference between ouch, the hurt, and the anger. That's already the second step. Thinking this thing did it to me. It may not be spelled out, but it's this paranoid type of attitude that is latent or slightly or very active in all of us. So one day, wonder of wonders, bumping into something. It was a hurt, but that was it. There was no effort, no intention, just a marvelous realization. It's not inevitable. There is indeed the possibility of a state of being in which conditioned reactions are in abeyance, and therefore space and freedom. So now, where did I come from? It's gone. To watch oneself in relationship, to find out about me. But really, there has to be some interest, or else the mind is so resourceful, the brain is so resourceful in pouring out rationalizations and reasons and justifications and projections, which are only held back if there's an interest to say what is really going on, not rationalizing oneself in one's reactiveness. So, the response to an insult is hurt. The response to a flattery is good feelings, good energy, wanting more of that. Normally, I don't mean for everybody all the time. So if that is one's response, not maybe an insult that's so gross, being corrected in something, or not being acknowledged the way one would like to be acknowledged, being slighted in some way, in favor of someone else, you name it, we all know it. And then the response. For years and decades, one hasn't even really been interested in it. Oh, this is where it came from. There has to be interest. Why do I get hurt when I bump? Why do I get hurt the moment someone corrects me or seems to prefer someone else? This slight hurt or dis-ease that ensues so quickly. So, first, one has to notice it without rationalizing it away and thinking how the other person better change their ways. Wondering, is it inevitable? Does it have to continue like this for the rest of my life? Not, it must change for the rest of my life, but does it have to continue? Is it inevitable? Bringing this gentle questioning without conclusion, which is fueled by some interest, strong or small, it doesn't matter. What is it that gets hurt? That's the next question. Ask that of ourselves. What is it that gets flattered? That wants to be praised, approved of, loved, and dreads to be disapproved of, remain unacknowledged. What is it? Because I don't know what it is. In the beginning, we're very opaque looking inwardly. We haven't learned this. No one has taught us or mentioned to us that it's possible to watch thoughts, or for thoughts and their connection with emotions, their link, like a spark flying from thought to emotion, potentially becoming transparent inwardly. It's not just thinking about it, it's seeing it happen as it happens. It's possible for human beings like you and me when there's some interest in this, and not too much tied upness in theory, abstraction, knowing all about it. That's the barrier. Have to start from not knowing about it and wondering about it. Somebody told me that this morning, I believe. To their amazement, a thought arising and no emotion connecting. Not through any kind of repressiveness, but it just didn't happen. But the thought was seen. So awareness has this as if magical potential to disconnect. A thought arising from the stream of emotion being set into motion. One can at times see it almost there. One can feel the rumble. But the connection does not take place because not because I do it, but there's attention. But we're looking not at awareness right now so much, but what is this I? See, let nobody give you an answer, and don't be satisfied if somebody does. Because this is what the brain is also conditioned to do. Ask questions, expect answers, and for some really strange reasons be satisfied with the answer, which hasn't really answered anything. It's the process that we've learned to get some superficial satisfaction in. So, can that I phenomenon be watched, become transparent? Not expecting that if it does become transparent, it will disintegrate and disappear forever. These are ideas. What will happen to it? Let it reveal itself. Let it show itself. Experience it as it happens. Maybe it'll continue. Very likely it will. Most certainly it will. Because most of the time human beings are inattentive, and all the automatic piloting of reactions goes on in inattention. When there is some awareness, the automaticness gives way to discovering what is really going on. So, can one discover this profusion of self-images, not just two, a new one almost for any occasion, and their power, their staying power, wanting to reaffirm itself like that, to be taken like this, to be accepted like this. And can one observe with wonderment how the brain, which is a genius storyteller, makes stories out of imagery and remembered incidents into a coherent or seemingly coherent whole. The story of my life. Myself at the center of it. At times as heroine, at times as villainous, and all the gradations in between. And not just the amazing storyline that goes on and on into the future. What will my future be like? Or what should it be like? Or what do I want it to be like? What am I afraid that it will be like? The attachment to it. It's not just sort of sputtering along stream of storyline, but there is addiction to it, attachment to it. As though it was one's real life. And because it is taken to be and attached to as though it was one's real life, all the defensive and protective mechanisms, the fear and aggression mechanisms that are conditioned since time immemorial into this organism, spring into action when the story is threatened. Amazing phenomenon. To see and respond, not to see, to believe in danger and respond to it as danger where there is none. It's all imagined. A danger to an imagined entity. Very often when we're wrought with fear and defensiveness or aggressiveness, that nothing is threatening this body. Nobody's hurling stones at us. It's words, body language, ideas, actions that are not life-threatening, but self-story threatening. So we can't go on and on all morning about this, but the story goes on and can be entered into through awareness, waking up to it. And then wondering, as it is running, something has just happened, one got upset over something. What somebody did, And noticing that the story has already started about what he did to me. How could he? The injustice of it. It's so unfair. I hadn't done this. And on, and keeping the fire burning. And if that is noticed, if one wakes up to this phenomenon, the incident has long passed, the story is running, the body is on fire, does it have to continue? Does it have to keep on going? It's an innocent question. And it comes up. The earlier it comes up in this story building, the quicker the fire is out. Because eventually, sooner or later, one sees the utter futility of going with a story. Waste of energy, waste of presence, waste of relationship. And one has learned that by having observed it time and time and time again. Does that make sense? Of course, the end of the story is something human beings dread. Most of us. I don't. The idea of our death, which really is mostly story too and idea, isn't it? Death itself right now, can't we agree to that? That death at this moment is an idea. Is it possible in listening to crows and wind or stillness, there can be a dying to the ideas? A dying to time, which is the story about the future. When death occurs, we'll be ready for it. Maybe not. Maybe we will be. Right now, can we die to the fantasizing about it? Although I'm not saying that to realize that we will die is a bad realization. Nothing is bad anyways. It's what it is when seen clearly in the bright light of day. We will end here for today.